This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For October 28th, 2022, it's the AV Super Friends Off the Rails. Welcome back, everybody. Time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure with the AV Super Friends. We are the AV Super
Yes, we are. Welcome.
We are the AV Super Friends, and it's Friday. My name is Chris Dector. I'm joined today by Jamie, Mark, and Justin.
Yo.
And on today's show, we're going to not re-record that at all. But on today's show, we're going to discuss mixing hybrid in an active learning space, or group learning space maybe. We're going to discuss super wide aspect ratios, which are not new, by the way, and do not use them.
I heard they're the standard, though.
They are the new standard. But first...
Classroom of the future.
The classroom of 1957. But first, let's do some AV news.
Let's do it.
And it's partially AV related. So this is just my news because I want to talk about it. 2 weeks ago, I was at the CCUMC conference and wanted to bring it up. This is the last ever CCUMC conference. In fact, halfway through, it stopped being the CCUMC.
Ceased to exist.
Ceased to exist. It stopped right then. They
just came out one day and said, "We're done.
They put your luggage on the street."
You know,
and
a
they
lot
said,
of people are doing that
out.
these days.
So for those who don't
out.
know, CCUMC is the consortium of community college and university media centers, something like that.
Ding, 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 ding.
Which is
Or
part
you
of
mean
the
it
issue.
used to be?
It used to be.
It
And
used to be
now,
that.
now it is ETC, the educational...
The lighting company.
No, the
Not the lighting
educational...
company.
Shit, let me get this right. Hold on. The Educational Technology Collaborative.
Ding, ding,
Which
ding.
I'm also
ding,
not
ding, ding, ding.
super big on because, to your point, Jamie, that a name is used by others and ETC is just an abbreviation for et cetera.
Isn't the collaborative like some like
The collaborative.
You mean in the sense of the Dutch
the
during World War II
collaborative.
collaborative? So
It's the collaborative.
We should play a
According
game
to the
show
collaborative.
where we state acronyms and see who could say
like-
it first. But
It's like the
drink
the
a bunch
spy.
of beer.
It's a spy movie.
I wanted to give my my thoughts on this conference. It was the first one in 3 years since pre-COVID, and it was actually really solid. The attendance was well beyond the expectations, and I think it was one of their largest ones. Almost 200 people there for that. So it's a smaller conference, but it's a true conference. It is not a trade show. This is a conference. You go there with your friends, your enemies, and your neighbors, and you are there to share ideas and to talk about what's going on and figure out solutions and you know, and a lot of it is to truly network and conference. And what I like about I was going to say CCUMC, what I like about ETC's conference, similar to those from NW Met and other smaller regional conferences, is the manufacturer reps, the attendees, they're on an even playing field. Everyone is there to participate in the conference. It's not this separate thing like at a trade show where, we're here to sell you stuff and then you go to your classes. But everyone eats together, you drink together, you sleep together. Some of them, they have problems with room bookings. Not in that sense, Justin. Jeez.
Oh. It's like, man, this is some kind of conference.
This is an awesome conference. You should.
Should I bring my
Sign up.
wife or not bring my wife?
I invited all of you to be there, and no one else wanted to go.
This sounds like one of them Roman Empire things.
Yeah, this sounds weird. Do we wear masks?
No, that's a different conference. That's Bacchanalia. That's a different one. But what's nice about this is you get a lot of time to kind of just sit down and chat and discuss things with other end users, with other technology managers, other technicians and AV nerds and e-learning folks, and but also with the manufacturer reps, and you get a lot of good ideas. And it was interesting talking with some who after a day or so would say things like, what would be really good is if people were focusing on like the content before they started buying stuff. And I went, thank you. This person is now they're now hearing this because all they hear all day long is how to sell stuff. And now they're hearing from end users, and that's starting to click with them. And I think that only makes them better attuned to working with the higher ed vertical.
I think you're right.
So,
I think all those smaller conferences are much more accessible. Everybody there is much more accessible as far as the conversation, being able to dive into like deeper substance of quality conversation. It's definitely a lot better than chasing people are on a giant show floor and in the noise and all that stuff. So I think it's a higher level of quality.
I think it is that like-mindedness as well. It is nice to go and know that the folks that are there are trying to better their little part of this world, right? They're trying to increase their knowledge, and they're trying to be better, right? Where sometimes you go to the trade shows and you're there to get swag and free dinners, right? Or remember,
Or sell stuff.
Or for years it was the can I score a ticket to whatever after party there was, right? But I do, some of the local ones that we have around here, I do enjoy going to them, and sometimes even the consultants and things come. And to Chris's point, they need to hear sometimes that we look at them and say, hey, it's not just whatever cool thing you have this week, it's what does it do for me? I really like those. And for the record, the name change, I'm neutral on. I'm a little more positive than neutral on. I think CCUMC, to Chris's point, and what does that mean? But at least ETC is, education, technology, collaborative.
Collaboration with Germans.
Right?
Well, it's easier to say, so that's a positive.
And I think it really encompasses all the people he was talking about, the instructional designers and the AV people, and so I don't know, I think the name change was a positive thing. I just was kind of curious on, did anybody else go ETC? That's used, I think. I think that one's taken.
That's my primary concern. I mean, you're right, Justin. It's easier to spell, but it's also not unique, I guess. But maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, when you Google it, what are you going to come up with, right?
Ooh, let's find out.
Ooh. Who pays more money for analytics and Google
CCUMC. Just forward you right back.
First thing that comes up is the lighting company, so that'll be tough.
Yeah,
of course.
Actually, the first thing that comes up for me is
Ethereum.
the dictionary.
So Mark, you'd like that one. So cryptocurrency comes up,
and
then dictionary discussions about the actual
etc.
So,
which could be that's a good conference as well. Just what's it about? Et cetera,
things.
Everything.
That stuff.
There's that etc. restaurant in Nashville that comes up third for me.
Oh, the regional
you have
results.
Your location services
Regional, yeah.
What? Nashville's like 3 hours from you. Why is that coming
What? When's your geography lesson? When do you have that? Oh, it's only 50 minutes down the road.
Man,
all right.
We're right there.
Well,
anytime you fly into Nashville, just let me know and I'll come drive down the road and pick you up and take you where you're going. Better than Uber.
All right, so I'm going to fly into Nashville.
That's an open invitation to anybody listening, by the way.
Exactly. Whatever. Justin will take you wherever you want. You just got to get to Nashville. He'll drive you wherever else in the country you want.
Yeah. And I'll drive you wherever you want. No problem.
No problem.
Send all that over to Mailbag. Go ahead and send that
ETC is not showing up for me. ETC Connect. Oh, yeah, that's the lighting. Okay. Coin market.
They're still in development. They're going to get it right.
It's ETC now. Oh, here's an internet service with ETC.
They have to get some.
All right, we've exhausted that.
Yeah,
I can't find them. Okay.
It'll be there. They're going to get their whole search optimization straightened out. It'll be there.
So
anyway,
Chris,
highly recommend to anybody listening. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, I was like, besides the sessions that you did,
which was the best session?
Yes, besides those. So what was the third or fourth best session? Which one did you like? This one I really liked. This was the one that you should have been at.
There was a really good one actually by a manufacturer, by Legrand. It was Legrand and the Cables to Go.
21 by 9?
It's not about 21 by 9. It was about USB-C and all the problems with USB-C from the standpoint of there's 27 different flavors of this thing and how the heck are we going to do it? And and what I like about it is they didn't have a solution to sell you to say there's all these problems and we've got the right thing to solve it. No, they were very open about the presentation. It was Joe Cornwell did the presentation, and Joe does a great job presenting. Highly recommend it if you ever get an opportunity to take a class with Joe, a webinar, a session, well worth your time. Fantastic presenter. Highly recommend.
Absolutely.
Oh, that would have been a good one. All right.
But really well done. And honestly, and I talked about it with the people when I got back here, like USB-C, there is no one good solution for it. That is going to be a problem for years to come. There is no way to know when looking at a device what it does and does not support. There is no way when looking at a cable to know what it does and does support. It is going to be a pain in the butt, and you're going to have to be intentional about it. And the problem is there is going to be enough success with people buying that $9 adapter on Amazon that the assumption then it will be just that easy to integrate in a full, commercial AV
$2,000
environment.
computer, $5 adapter.
It's not. So yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Isn't that the conference that you came back and said, these guys up here, the USB-C experts, were the ones to say, do not extend USB-C?
Yes, so that's the short version.
Yes.
Let me boil down Joe Cornwell's entire presentation.
Because we
do
preach this a
not
lot.
extend USB. There you go.
And I'm glad Joe said that, because we've said this on and on and on again.
Yeah,
I say it at work all the time.
He needs to be here.
USB
Don't
is
hear what we're not saying. We're not saying you can't
what?
find USB extenders. We're just telling you don't do it.
Don't do it.
We ought to get Joe on the
USB
show.
it's a peripheral. It's a protocol for attaching to peripherals from a host device. I go from a host, generally computer, but tablet, phone, whatever, to a thing within 6 to 10 feet. That is what USB is for. Do not extend USB. Use a baseband video or baseband audio device, whatever, and then put USB on the far end, the last inch. Switch to USB, plug in your computer. That's how you do it.
Do we want Joe to be on the show
bring him in?
sometime?
You can call him in right now.
I'm going to text him. I can.
We'll bring
I've got
him
his
in.
cell
We'll bring
phone
him on.
number.
I think it'll be interesting to have that shakedown on that. Joe is a
Hey,
full-time.
While
it's Justin.
While Justin sets that up, what else we got coming up today?
Well, after this, we're going to talk with Jason Zoff from University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and he posed a question about how the heck are we going to do active learning and hybrid all in one space?
Ooh.
And rather than just saying don't do that, we're going to talk through that and see what kind of solutions we come up with. And then I'm going to complain about super wide aspect ratio displays.
Okay. Well,
So,
we'll get
but
into
first, how about a commercial?
Hey y'all, I've got this new show I got to tell you about. It's called AVSF Live. That's LIVE exclamation point. First off, all you need to do is go to avsf.live.live, not .com, not .net, but .live. Yes, it's a website, does work. We're going to try out this new live video thing. It's probably going to go over like a hair in a biscuit. You got to check it out. Come to the tweeters and look us up on LinkedIn to find out more information. We'll see y'all soon.
All right, so we're joined by Jason Zoff from the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and he's the Director of Academic Technology Services. And Jason was, gutsy enough, he was brave enough.
Yeah, brave enough.
He was foolish enough to send us a question. So, Jason, I'm going to throw it to you here in a second, but you attended the session we presented at the Technology and Learning Conference put on by Montgomery County Community College, and we just kind of did an open forum. And one of the topics came up was about active learning spaces and hybrid learning and all sorts of fun stuff like that. And you wrote in afterwards and you said, what the heck are we doing here? Do you want to summarize? I have your email if you want me to read that, or do you want to just kind of summarize your question?
Sure, I can give you a quick summary. So I can tell you one of the things that we're looking at here at UW Green Bay is in that kind of hybrid space. So we try and serve students in however they come to us. So we've got some situations where we have classes that are offered on campus, but we have students who want to take that course and we're allowing them to sometimes join virtually. So really the trick there becomes how do we make that experience the best for both the in-person and the virtual students? And so really where the crux of my question is really trying to get to how are we able to set up technology in such a way that we can create opportunities for those students to interact. So we don't become, all virtual students, you're always in the same group, and they never have the opportunity to really interact with their classmates who are with them, who are in person on campus.
And I think that was kind of the crux of the challenge there is, hey, we can build good in-person spaces. We can build good online and hybrid spaces, but how do we do an in-person and a hybrid space and do group work and problem-based learning, active learning, all the rest, but make it actually work well from the technology and the teaching standpoint? And I'll summarize our response with,
yeah, it's a very technical.
That's where we'll start.
This is like the $64,000 question, right? This is what everybody's trying to do.
And that's why I'm glad you're able to join us. That's why I thought, all right, we can respond to this and we can trade emails back and forth, but let's discuss this because this is a challenge for everybody. Everyone is thinking about this, and there's any number of ways to do it. But what is our approach?
Is there an agreed upon wrong
how
approach
many
too?
different ways have we failed? And so really right now,
Or
what
succeeded.
we're going to portray to you is all the ways that we've tried and we're very unsuccessful. And basically, for me, merging them all into one room is a catastrophe. What we ultimately, we'll just go to what ultimately how we solved the issue was that the mass group class was together for basically the lecture portion, right? And when it came down to time to have group work and you wanted dynamic groups, they just across the hall purpose built 5 breakout rooms. And you said, okay, you 3 and you 2 online, you'll be in breakout 1, you 3, you 2 online in breakout 2, and then I'll come back in 30 minutes. It's almost the same as if you did it all in person. Like, okay, everybody break off in your groups for 5 minutes, and then come back. And it was the least overhead for the instructor. Because when you start getting into using technology to make these breaks, it became an absolute nightmare for the instructor because they can't just drop in on any one particular online and outside group. The AV gets all wacky. Can you do it? Yes. Can you do it and not you personally run it? You know? So that's what my experiences were. It was like, don't mash them all into one space.
So I'm actually going to go to a meeting after this whole call today, and I'm going to go experience this actual same thing. We have a cohort online with some breakout sessions, and there will be a cohort in the room. And one of the pieces as we were unpacking how to do this is a year-long class that we're in.
It's a year-long cohort. Wow.
Yeah, it's forever. So it goes. But one of the interesting ways that we're managing this exact problem is the together alone piece, right? And so that everybody in the room is going to have their own computer, and they will be on the remote session as well. Now, there are some best practices, obviously, around audio, video, and all that stuff, but that back channel communication seems to lend itself very well through that way. So you can engage with those foreign participants and the people in the room in that quasi-digital domain and still have that in-person experience where you're kind of saying, everybody in the room, you're going to have an in-person experience, but you're also going to experience the same thing that people remote are going to experience. Instead of trying to make everybody remote act as if they're in the room, you kind of flip it over a little bit.
Does that give you, that's curious, interesting a way to approach it. Does that give an advantage to those who are remote at that point or online?
It kind of levels the playing field for communication.
Okay.
We remove the A and the V side of this and distill it down to what is it that you need to say, put it into this text readable form, and everybody's communicating the same way, right? And so you've kind of set the barrier so everybody kind of has the same experience. You obviously have your audio and your video as well via Zoom or whatever it is you're using, but you do kind of give this neutral communication kind of playing field that people can kind of make use of.
But doesn't include the active breakouts, right?
Well, we do.
Once you get into active breakouts, then what do you do
we're
there?
managing the breakouts by way of the Zoom breakout room, right? So we're doing all that. So people in the room can be a part of those different pieces. They don't have to be their own cohort and their own breakout.
They're not physically going anywhere.
They can be in part of those virtualized sessions as well. Now, there is some best practices in acknowledgement of the linearity of audio flow in here and what that may mean to folks. We do also recommend it when we get into those pieces that you have earbuds and all that kind of piece as well. So it's best practices where it all comes in there, which means your faculty need to be very well trained in how to do this type of pedagogy and delivery and make sure their course and curriculum is aligned correctly for that.
Yeah.
Not saying it's right, just it's a version of it.
And I don't really have anything technical to say other than what Jamie and Mark has already said. I mean, that kind of sums it up. We do have a piano lab on campus, and their audio system is headphones and head-worn mics, and it's this whole thing. Doesn't really have to do with Zoom, but that's kind of that same situation of level the playing field. Everybody's hearing the same thing, no matter what the acoustics are in the room. But I think the most important thing is, we're dealing with an AV consultant for the first time in 15 years on our campus pitching Zoom capable and active learning rooms. And that's great. And the teachers are asking for it. And I'm trying to figure out why the teachers are asking for it and setting those expectations correctly and maybe understanding what their needs are, because I'm sure you've probably done that already, but with this coming on, the forefront of my decision making and what I'm involved with, I've got to figure out why they're asking for this and what's in their head, because traditionally they've never wanted to do this. So this comes to me in our culture at our university as a complete shock and surprise.
So Jason, maybe a question for you on this. What is the general use case? I know you said kind of in a wide scope, you want to make sure you'll be able to provide a kind of an equitable experience for everybody, regardless of where they are. They're not always locked into the same group, sort of thing. But do you see this being something that's going to be used by multiple instructors across multiple subjects, and you want to try to figure this out now before it really becomes a thing? Or is there a drive to get, hey, we need 20 spaces to do this in our new building? Or where are you guys coming from?
Sure. Well, I can give you a couple perspectives. So I'm actually fairly new in my role at UW Green Bay. I came from a community college in the area where we did more of this. And that it very much was of trying to get access to folks for transportation issues and those kinds of things. There was a big push for that. And COVID, I think that pandemic really pushed this of the, how are we really serving everybody, those who may be sick and want to still access courses, those who can't travel to one of our sites. So in that space, it was driven that way. Now, as I've transitioned to university, we have a handful of spaces. We have 4 campuses, a handful of spaces on these campus locations that have these. There is a push from the academic administration to do more of that. So I think really it's trying to think through how are we really engaging those students meaningfully in those online students in a meaningful way. And as that, pedagogy has shifted in the classroom to be more active, how does that translate to this situation? So I think part of it is that we're an access institution. We want to make sure we're, like you were saying, treating everybody equitably. But then as we have these mixed hybrid spaces, how are we really trying to treat folks well and give them a meaningful experience? I think knowing that we can't fully replicate, you can't make the in-person experience online, but are there technological affordances that allow us to do things in a better way? Perhaps they have the best experience they can have.
I think you can. And I think, but it starts with being really intentional with your approach. And that intentional piece extends to your faculty. Right, we could configure the best system in the world in a room, right, and that we're really controlling. It's very well treated. But if that faculty member is not ready and has not thought about how to use that tool set to the maximum, I've seen it fall apart. Like people just walk in and say, "Oh, I'm here." Doesn't this room automate and just do everything magically? And it's like, it can, but you still have to take ownership of that experience. And I think that faculty development is key to that technology.
And when you start blending the different modalities together, now it almost requires them to rewrite their structure. And a lot of folks, that's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. And you get into the routine of, I've been doing this even 2-3 years, right? And you have this routine, and now you have to completely blow it up. Same material, maybe same activities, but it has to be portrayed in a completely different way. And if you don't have that buy-in, you can have a really cool and automated, as much as we can, right? It still all requires some thought from the actual instruction and teaching and learning. It's the teaching and learning part. And the students have to own some of it too, right? The students have to say, hey, this is working. Let's do it. Or this isn't working. And some students won't participate in that end of it. Like they don't want to own their part of this either. And so that's the big missing key in a lot of these technology questions is how do you get into that level? Because I'm sure you've experienced where some folks don't like being suggested to change their methods.
Well, I would hope if this is almost a campus-wide push to do this, that there would be some look at curriculum and working with your teaching and learning center or the faculty development office, whatever you have there to kind of work on that side of things. And it sounds like we've talked about a couple of different approaches. Jamie has like purpose-built spaces for this that work really well. Mark is describing how they changed how they're actually doing this so that they can make sure it's fair and equitable for everybody. But the one thing we really haven't touched on specifically is like technology approaches. Like because honestly, we do this a lot, but what stuff are we buying to make this work? And I know I mentioned in the email a little bit there, and I'm happy to summarize, but any thoughts from the rest of the panel on kind of like where are we starting? Okay, we need to do this in a space. What are we starting with? Because we have to buy some stuff at some point to make this work. And is that stuff just headsets like Justin was describing, or is it something more complex and permanently installed?
We have some approaches in spaces that we have some active learning rooms that do have this remote capable piece layered in, but it's remote capable from the whole context, not individually, right? And so, and the rooms sound really good, which makes it pretty easy, honestly. Yeah, and it works. So each student, we're going to call them pods. The group of students around has its own microphone, its own display, all that kind of the stuff I would assume would be a standard active learning space. And the room's tuned very well, but again, it's all designed from the one singular hosted event. Now, where we know we can go down the road of breaking that up and start isolating and matrixing those microphones, but the people who don't want to manage that are the faculty. They don't want to have to play the dance game on the touch panel to choose, okay, we're going to go into ISO mode. Now we're going to host local Zoom breakout rooms with the computers that are at each of the pods. We can do it, but there just seems to be this resistance level. Well, that just seems very complicated. So they just host as a single session, right? And so,
and I don't disagree either. I mean, it's like we've done this early on with active learning spaces, and somebody invariably says, "I want to see every possible source and destination available on like an advanced page." And sometimes you give them that, and they're like, "Well, there's 100 buttons on here." Yeah, because that's what's going on in here. That's just too much. And you don't want to. They're experts in their field. They were there to teach physics or history or geography or whatever it is. They don't want to have to drive the NASA command console. So that's the challenge. We can give them the most complex system in the world that will do exactly what they want, but requires a team of 4 to actually drive it.
And that's exactly the point, Chris, is what my challenge is trying to explain that experience to someone before they dive into the deep end without that life raft, right? Because that deep end looks really nice. It's spacious, but you got to be ready for it. So,
have you had the opportunity for for some of the drivers of this initiative to get into just a typical active learning room, seat 5 people at that table, 5 people at that table, and then jump online? You're in that group, and have them experience what it's like when that cacophony of sound comes on and that's just 2 tables. Have you had an opportunity to like have that level of demonstration?
To my knowledge, that hasn't happened yet. Now, it may have in the time before I came to the university, but I think I agree. I think that would be a really interesting thing for the decision makers to see that space and experience what that's like, right? If I put it akin to like, I'm either the only person online in the in-person meeting, and what a challenge that is, of those kind of spaces. The other piece, and I'm glad I remember who brought this up, but in thinking through the complexity of it, but also the cost. I think, because like we talked about, we could do some really awesome things, but I just hear cash register, ringing after ringing after ringing. And so then the challenge is, how do you do it in a simple or non-complex manner for faculty, so like you're suggesting, they don't get overwhelmed by what's there, and the most cost-effective way for the university also. So what I appreciate about some of your suggestions was that there was kind of a range of things there. And so those are kind of the parameters that we're working within, as well as, like we talked about a little earlier, trying to have it be everything to everybody is the challenge of agility of furniture, agility of technology. And as you want folks to bring things in, I think there's a continuum there of you can't have powered tables and have them easily movable around the room too, without people yanking plugs out of the floor and, all kinds of stuff that I've seen happen in my past also. So just trying to find that perfect balance somewhere, or really, I think to the suggestions too of trying to really right size and say, okay, what are you really trying to do here pedagogically, and what does this look like, and what can we do to make it meet that, and understand it's not going to do everything, and it can't be everything to everybody.
And that's a great example to build a test environment of just maybe two tables there and bring people in to use it and put those people in the student's shoes, right?
And that can be
you have to get the shoes from the students.
Yeah,
right,
and that can be as easy as just put a laptop at each table. I mean, but you have your screen and you have your microphone and you have your camera. And no, it's not wonderful, but that's not the point. The point is, well, this is what we're going to be dealing with later. And have somebody in the room across the hall and make them rotate to that other room, right? So that they get not only what's it like right here, but what's it like when you go over there. I put one of these, it was really interesting. I put one of these in for our pharmacy program, and it was a really weird room, and it had these pods, and everybody understood the limitations, right? Everybody understood that this is going to be, and the biggest complaint it's one that was merged together. The largest complaint is we can hear everybody, but we can't see everybody. If I have them all on Zoom, you can see most everybody, but the instructor can't see everybody because there's these they're either turned their backs to you, or if they're back to back, there's these giant walls of monitors in front of the students. And if the instructor walks around the corner to physically see the eyeballs of somebody, they are no longer near enough a monitor to see all the people that are online. And they go, we're hearing people and things, but we can't rectify the fact that nobody can see that person, or it comes on later. And that disconnect, that eye contact, was the one thing that ended up kind of, the technology was great. They did change their pedagogy. And yet they got to this point where like, oh, that's a deal breaker.
So I think you have a really good opportunity. It sounds like your university is going to look at this through the equitability and the access lensing. And I think that's the actual, the avenue you want to look at, is that acknowledge that there's an opportunity for us to have change. And what does that mean? Where are your champions and your faculty that say, you know what? I'm willing to look at this differently. How can I do something different with the lens of inclusion and equitability of knowledge, and let's bring them in. Let's bring them to the table and have a conversation. What is it that we need to be able to do? What does it mean to be successful in this? Does it mean cameras and microphones, or does it just mean to communicate? So really define what that inclusion success looks like. So how are we bringing those students in? How are we communicating effectively with them? And let that define your actual tool set. So you're not like throwing a bunch of stuff at it, where you can be a partner in that exploring process. So you're not trying to solve it wholly owned by the technology, that it's technology with the operations, with faculty working hand in hand to define this whole new paradigm for teaching and learning, so the university can kind of be on that edge. Because I think that's where a lot of universities really are right now, is they recognize that it's time to redefine a modality, a delivery, and whatever this means, but that means there's work to be done, right? And I think that's where we are right now. We're at the point to do the work.
And also, Mark, like you're saying, if defining the outcome, the solution could be exactly what Jason's wearing right now, a $20 headset, right? A USB and everybody's laptops. And that meets everyone's goals, because everybody was overthinking everything. They needed all these widgets and big screens, but maybe we just need students to require laptops and headsets and headphones if it's always Zoom foreign participants going to be joining active learning. Who knows?
We've talked about on the show and in personal experiences, we've talked about, different thoughts for different tools, such as Discord or Twitch, right? You still get audio and video, and you get all the chats, and you get all the breakdowns, and it's all saved, and it's all there. And now those are, outside the box, but not really. Now they're starting to be included in programs. And yet it checks all the boxes. It checks every box. They're just not, they're thought of as gaming platforms. I use it for my soccer teams, right?
There may be challenges related to that too. Campus security.
There are. Those are just examples.
I would never like that up here, but yeah.
Those are just examples of These are different ways to use a tool, and that tool was not Zoom, and it was not Teams, and yet it's massive amounts of persistent chat. It's massive amounts, and you have video and audio. So does the Blackboard or Canvas or whatever LMS is out there, is there one that fits? I don't know.
One other thing that I'd like to bring up, and it's kind of halfway between Justin's comment a few minutes ago about like just buy everyone a headset, that'll work fine, and the temptation to build out a full complex room system is honestly, especially if you can get a PC at each of these student pods and treat that as the primary source of connection, and keep it PC centric, but get a little camera bar or a little microphone system or whatever that just goes to the computer. It doesn't report back to the rest of the room. It doesn't feed the rest of the room from that sort of thing. And that will, just by both the electronic side of things, you're not sending that back to the larger room system, but also sheer physics. If those tables are 8 or 10 feet apart and there's other conversations going, most of the little sound bar, all-in-one camera bar things you can get for a small conference room have a limited pickup and will only get things within 8 or 10 feet. So you're not going to get a huge amount of crossing. You'll still get some, but you might look at some options of basic little systems and you say, look, we spent $200 per space and put one of these in, and that does exactly what we need using the installed computer. It doesn't do the additional bells and whistles of reporting back to the larger room, and you can't hear the different pods all over. But to what Jamie was just saying, you leverage that online tool, whether that's Google or Zoom or Teams or whatever, to make those connections, and that might get you, that 90% of the way there for something that's got a very low hurdle to pull off and a very low bar of entry, and everybody understands how to work a computer regardless of operating system, and so you have a lot of options there. That rather than that temptation of I'm going to go build, as you said, the cash register method of $600,000 rooms. Well, I can build one, I can't build 25. So
I like looking at it from that lensing of several small simplified locations as opposed to one giant one that splits up and does all that stuff. I like it solving it individually.
And we've talked about that in general recently, just about active learning spaces. Rather than trying to make them all one big system, make them 5 or 6 individual systems that can talk to each other, rather than it's this monstrous thing because someone has to manage that. Now, from an AV nerd standpoint, that's cool. I want to build the giant monstrous thing. I don't want to manage or maintain it, but I want to build it. So,
and it's easier to make improvements to it, an $1,000 thing than the $100,000 thing.
Yes.
When you come back later and say, "Well, shoot, that didn't work." Well, that was $250,000. Now you're like, "Well, that $2,500 sucked. I'll write a Google review and get the next one." It's just a lot easier to go.
Google review.
So, Jason, does that at all help? I mean, I know we've kind of jumped all over the place with like a number of different approaches and different ways to accomplish this, but I don't know if that informs the conversation or just muddies the waters.
No, I think it's absolutely helpful. I appreciate your all's willingness to share your experiences, and that, 'cause I think that's what we're trying to get our heads around is, what are our opportunities out there? What are our options? And I think your points about engaging with the faculty and our teaching and learning center and the pedagogical side of it in this is really critical, of understanding the outcome instead of throwing, a solution looking for a problem, understand the problem and then see what solutions are available and do it that way. So yeah, it's immensely helpful.
Yes.
So
go
what's
with
your
that
next
last
step,
part.
do you think? What are you going to go back with now?
Find solutions that fit your thing. Don't just get hung up on the product. Hey, that's a cool name. I want one of those. Shipping in 2028.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, next steps I think for me are, so I've been engaging in conversations with our teaching and learning center to, one, better understand the space and better understand the purpose of really trying to build those relationships with faculty who are teaching frequently in that space and understand what they're looking for. I know we have some programs, there's I think one in particular that has a cohort in another part of the state. And so that's really one of the drivers behind this is they're trying to engage that particular cohort at a separate location and engage them with the folks here on the main Green Bay campus. And just understand that better. And I think that'll uncover some of those, really the outcomes they're looking for. And then we can start, I guess from a backward design perspective that way.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You'll have people who are who would ordinarily be teaching and leading those courses now experiencing it from the student side, and that'll be hugely informative to the process here. So, Jason, again, thanks very much for joining us.
I have one more
we will
question.
certainly follow up. All right, one more question. You got 10 seconds,
Jamie's
Jamie.
got
One more
more.
question.
Go.
I do have one more question. No, out of curiosity, does your
3
staff,
seconds.
does your university do all of the design and installation, or do you take it to an integrator once you have an idea?
Well, so I have limited experience here, like literally been with the college for about a month and a half. My understanding there's a little bit of both. So there's some that's been done in the past where it's been, our staff has designed it, the ordering, installation, all of that. Then there are other instances where we've worked with integrators in the design, installation, and that too. So kind of a mixed bag of things.
The reason I ask that is because it's very important when you do these meetings, these next steps that you were just talking about, that you capture them in a way that you can hold that integrator accountable to what those steps were and not to whatever widget they're selling today. Right? And that's why I asked that question, is that if you're going to do the legwork and you're going to get all this information and you're going to do this, make sure that they do it your way. You're not bowing to their way. Hold them accountable to make sure they do it what you want.
Excellent point. Make sure the integrators understand or your consultants understand the kind of your overall workflow and what you're trying to accomplish, not just how fancy the newest toy is. So again, Jason, thanks very much for joining us. Love to hear feedback on this as you go through this process. Keep us in touch. We'll welcome you back on if you have some successes or failures. Love to hear how that goes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we need a follow-up for this for sure.
I'd be happy to come back.
If you do find the one true solution, be sure to share it because we're all looking for it. As
let us
We've
know.
all done different approaches to this, and
Absolutely.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I'm going to put a bunch of sound booths over my active learning tables inside the room.
We've
that way
joked
you can
about
separate.
that. Build little recording booths in the rooms. And
Yeah, just go to
everyone has to go in
Sweetwater
and
and
shut
buy
the
those
door.
$500 sound booths. They probably work great, I'm
Drop
sure.
them in. Drop them in.
Betamax, here it comes.
Alrighty. Very cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Thank you.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So, here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
All right. So for our final segment today, this is one that I've seen more and more of, and you guys are probably starting to see this. 21:9 aspect ratios, the ultra wide aspect ratios. We're starting to get this from different manufacturers as this is the future and you need your stuff to do
You mean
this.
the new standard?
It's going to be great. I'm going to throw
Jamie,
away
I'm going to
mine
bring
and
that
just-
up. I'm going to quote that verbatim here in a second, but
Yeah.
because it pisses me off, honestly. There is a large AV conglomerate, I don't know what the term for them is, called Legrand,
Legrande.
who is doing this wrong. Legrand, knock it off. Microsoft does not
They're
drive
gaslighting
AV.
us into reality here.
Yeah.
But I just saw some firmware updates, notes on changelog on firmware updates that said now supporting 21:9, all stuff. Yeah, they're fine, great, okay. From a pixel standpoint, from a resolution standpoint, we can make it happen. But let me back up here. So this is something that is
He's
becoming a
getting
thing,
fired
but it's not a thing from the end users or the customers or the people actually leveraging. It's coming from the manufacturing because just like with 3D and just like with VR, they need something else to sell you because that screen that you put in 20 years ago and still goes up and down you need to replace it. So
How do I adjust the stops on my 4:3 screen to make it 21:9 now? Like,
you can do that with
you
math.
got to go all the way up. You got to
This screen goes all the way up.
I have one.
It's,
I've heard one good idea about this. So I hate it for classroom instruction. I hate everything about it. But I talked with a friend at Diversified, and I casually asked him, "Hey," because he was building a Microsoft Teams room, and I said, "Hey,
First mistake.
are you first mistake? Are you by chance putting in 21:9?" And his answer was, "Hell no." But it is a great product for digital
for you.
signage for like a nice big display in a lobby that's different. And then I was like, well, how do you deal with it? Well, I just put a Mac Mini behind it and we're done. And customers love it. I'm like, okay, I will buy that.
Yeah.
Not for me, but I can understand the usefulness of that 21:9, but that's really no different than a custom direct view LED wall. So there's
Yeah, it's very
there's
much
nothing
custom
new about
content,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So you
It's
got to
custom
do
content.
custom content. So it's just digital sign. So great. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful digital sign.
I will. Let me try to make this as positive as I can.
I did the same thing. I was trying to be
After
positive.
I dug that hole.
Yeah,
so
well, I mean-
let me litigate from the other perspective here. I think this is the beginning of a higher level of maturity for end users being aware of increased screen real estate.
I don't disagree.
I'm going to go out on a limb and give the general public they've upped their level of their game. They are now aware that, hey, I can get some additional real estate. I do not believe that equates to 21 by 9. I just believe that there's more awareness of screen real estate.
I don't disagree from the standpoint of the awareness of screen real estate. I disagree with your comment that the general public is picking on this. I think it's a very small percentage of them are aware of that. You go look at most people, what they're doing. They want to see, go look at most people's computers in their offices, at their homes, whatever. That one application, Mac, Windows, Linux, is maximized to fill the whole damn thing.
Yeah,
Because
but it's curved, Chris. It curves around my office.
I'm not even going to get into curved screens.
So if it curves, it's better because it almost touches my ears at that point.
Then I can hear
and
the
I
screen.
can see like a lizard out the side of my heads. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
I do
I'm like,
find
what's the point of that?
I do find it in the case of the specialized use for Teams, Microsoft, right? And for others, it does make it a nicer visual experience. Done. That's what I got, right?
That's it.
Let me,
That's over.
if you
this is
decide
clearly-
to build stupid Microsoft Teams rooms.
This is
Because you
clearly
gotta
something being driven by Microsoft and Microsoft's.
Yes.
Let me back up here and give their concept
over.
is
Okay.
a 21 by Welcome back, everybody, for our next segment. Their concept is a 21 by 9 screen gives you a 16 by 9 screen in the middle for your content, presumably appropriately sized, though we know damn well that's not going to happen. They are not going to have an appropriately sized screen that takes up more space.
I don't know if you know this, but PowerPoint doesn't do 16:9 yet.
Yeah.
It's still 4:3.
No, PowerPoint does 69. PowerPoint doesn't.
Oh, it does? Oh, my bad.
That's what you get for
they
shopping
fixed
at
that-
Walmart for everything.
They fixed that 2 years ago. So
still black and
this
white.
content field in the middle at 16:9, giving you extra screen real estate on the sides or on one side, depending how you arrange it, for the participants or your chat or whatever is in there. I get the concept. Appropriately sized, and when set up in the right sort of environment, it does make good sense and look good. Problem is, there's all these things you have to do. You know what doesn't support 16:9 in addition to my screen?
Anything
My
else?
projector, my display, or whatever I'm using with that. Yes, you can. Yes, I understand. I'm going to notch out and scale that to fit whatever, but my switcher doesn't. My computer may not. And someone's just saying, "Well, mine does. Mine does." Yeah, the new ones do, but you're telling me I got to throw out all my stuff to do this. And like I said, most people are not going to appropriately size their screen. They're going to get the same width screen they buy now. Mark, you already mentioned how do I adjust my 4:3 screen for this sort of thing. And that's what will happen. They'll set their stops on their 16 by 9 or 16 by 10 screen to be 21 by 9. And now it's too small. And I can't see the content. So please knock it off. Now, I do want to quote this verbatim from an unnamed manufacturer, but Daylight, from their website, where it says, if you go to their website, by the way, this now shows up, but ultra-wide format is quickly becoming the standard. No.
Yeah.
For displaying hybrid video conferencing. No. Where all attendees, whether they're in person or virtual, are equitably seen and heard. Also not true.
No, because it has
absolutely not
nothing to
true.
do with the other end.
We just had a whole
That's not
conversation with someone trying to make that an equitable experience, and they're saying,
Wait,
the solution is buy a new projector screen.
You're telling me I need increased screen real estate so I can have a little black box with everybody with their camera turned off? Is that what you're trying to sell me right now?
Just their names partially truncated.
Exactly.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're our goals are the same.
By the way,
and we're
I
good.
want to point this out to people. If you join a video call and you do not have your camera on, I start kicking you off the video call because I'm an ugly person and I'm on camera, so deal with it.
There you go.
Anyway, so the one thing, and Mark, to your point, I do want to bring this up. I do like, and Justin, you mentioned this early on with the digital signage, I do like these wider aspect ratios for those customized, custom content, custom spaces, customized displays, or in a space where I've got a processor. I'm going to decouple my content from like one content on one display sort of thing, and I can arrange my content in a way that, makes more sense, like most of us, I would think, probably on our working desktops, we have different windows opens and things. That's very cool. I don't see that taking off in your average physics, history, geography, math class in a university environment. It's not going to happen.
I want it to. I so badly want it to, and I'm hoping, but I'm
So
sure
here's the
you all
solution for
have
you, Mark.
spiders in all of your rooms doing all your screen processing.
Mark, this is
right?
going to be your solution. I know we've talked about this in the past, but I'm going to say, here's where I'm going to contradict a few things I just said. I'm not against ultra wide aspect ratios. I'm against, so I am for ultra wide if you do it the right way. So instead of going 21:9, go 32:9. Now I've got two identically sized content fields. Treat them as a single one, and then I can manipulate my content however I want. And if I don't want to, then it's just two side-by-side 16:9 images, which is the one true aspect ratio.
That is the way I believe it will actually shake out as well. You will actually have two 16:9 side by side.
Giant display wall, your display canvas thing. Gary Kay has talked about it for years. I really like that concept. Getting someone to actually use it.
I have requests for
challenge.
that currently that come in. How can I do side by side HD 16:9 on a single plane in a space like that? That's useful. So
yeah, and that's where I think
as long as you got the room for it.
Yeah, if you have the space and you do it intentionally and you do it correctly to the appropriate size so that your elements are legible to that student who comes in last and is sitting, or comes in first and is sitting in the back corner of the room, who's paying the same amount of tuition as somebody sitting in the front row. I don't want to disenfranchise them for that. So,
right.
Short version, look around. It's not going to happen. Knock it off. I'm not buying any of them. No one's buying any of them. It's never going to happen. This is the same thing as 3D and
Chris is
VR
buying all
and
of
the
them. He's buying
all of them, and I am going to never sell another one again. So, if you need to go wide,
That said, I was actually looking at a monitor for my desk that was that way.
But that's for you with custom content and custom space. Weirdo.
Oh well.
So, all right. It's for my personal teams. No, it's not.
Your team's room in your room?
All right. We'll see you guys.
Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV Super Friends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV Super Friends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.